Good evening, and thank you for joining us to learn about the University of Medicine and Health Sciences, or UMHS. My name is Sean Powers. I'm Vice President for Admissions at UMHS. My colleagues and I appreciate the opportunity to share information about the university with you. And I'd like to note that if you have not yet applied for admission to UMHS, I see a few familiar names on here, so I know we do have a few folks who have applied. But for those of you who have not yet applied for admission, applications are currently being accepted and processed for the three entry terms that we have in 2026. The winter term starts in January, the spring term starts in May, and fall starts next September. We run these monthly webinars to present the UMHS program in detail. We always have great questions from our audience, so I expect tonight to be no different. And as we move along this evening, feel free to type your questions into the Q&A area where we will answer them all individually while cherry picking a few to ask our panelists for their perspective as well. So helping me out with those behind the scenes and handling many of those answers is my colleague Sham Daria, Director of Enrollment Management, and I'm excited to introduce our panelists for this evening as well. Joining us this evening, the Director of the Main Integrated Program and Course Director for ICM, we've got Dr. Mohan Kumar. Dr. Kumar, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for being on. We appreciate your time. Um, we have our Director of Learning Services, Dr. Donna Walker, as well. Good to see you, Donna. Thanks so much for being here as well. And last, certainly not least, to tie everything together and talk about how the education at UMHS leads to success in your career, we have Dr. Kirthi Suganathavan. Kirthi's currently completing her surgical residency at Detroit Medical Center, PGY2. So, good evening. Thanks so much for sharing some of what I know is precious time for you as well. Well, I said last but not least for Kirthi, but last but certainly not least, as you've seen, the title of tonight's session is the President's Webinar for Prospective Students. So I'm pleased to introduce a man who has more than 45 years of experience in building and leading outstanding institutions, and that's our UMHS President, Warren Ross. Good evening, President Ross. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see all of you. And thanks, Sean. I usually like to just kind of jump in. As Sean says, I've been in academia since 1978, and my dad and I established one of the first offshore medical schools called Ross University, and we operated that for many years and received significant approvals from various states, recognition from Department of Education, affiliated with over 40 teaching hospitals, and we're the first to obtain Title IV funding for federal student loans, with thousands of graduates that have succeeded and gone on to residency and licensure throughout the United States. Um, when my dad turned 80, he decided that it was time to retire, and we subsequently sold the university. But we kept an eye on what was going on in the Caribbean to ensure, to see, how students were reacting to the changes in medical education. And we saw that many of the schools were getting really very large. They were bringing in classes of 300, 400, 500 students a semester. And it was really difficult to provide the same quality education that we provided when we owned our institution. So we decided that it was time to get back into medical education. But this time, I had an unlimited budget. I had many years of experience, knew exactly what I wanted to build. And my dad's only requirement was that we no longer build to a Caribbean model, we build towards a U.S. model. So in every way possible, we built towards the U.S. medical school model, and that includes the facilities in every way possible. I think that UMHS campus is probably one of the most modern, state-of-the-art facilities in the Caribbean. And I've been to many of the Caribbean medical schools. I've also visited a number of U.S. medical schools. I know our facilities are outstanding, from the beautiful anatomy lab, which is a model for U.S. medical schools, to our learning research center, our virtual hospital, our outstanding library, our learning management system, which is cloud-based, so students can access that from anywhere in the world, including on campus, and you can view all your faculty PowerPoint presentations, class notes, and to modern classrooms, where we utilize in all classrooms and laboratories the most state-of-the-art audiovisual equipment because medicine is very visual. So we want to bring to you that visual uh, aspect of the medical education, which really helps you better understand the material. So every aspect of the campus was developed towards a U.S. model. In addition to that, it was very important to bring in very highly qualified faculty. Primarily, we recruited faculty from the United States, Canada, UK, but we have a very diverse faculty. And the one thing that I'm very happy about is that just the quality of the faculty and their dedication to your success. It's really important for them to make sure that you're successful all the way through the academic program. And we've implemented a number of policies to ensure that you're going to be successful academically, including that after each block examination, and you're given 3 block examinations per semester, any students that didn't perform well, they're required and mandated to meet with their faculty, go over the examination, and develop a game plan. And then after that, they are also required to meet with our learning specialist. And that's really important. And why I say that's important is because if you take a look at our attrition rate, which is approximately 4%, that is probably the lowest out of all the Caribbean medical schools. And that's because we developed kind of this small boutique school where we can provide lots of hands-on experience with a 7-to-1, 8-to-1 student faculty ratio, which is comparable to what you would expect at a U.S. school. So with those type of resources, learning resources, highly qualified faculty dedicated to your success, and learning specialists that work with you from semester one all the way through the academic program to work on test taking skills and learning skills and time management. Those are all very important things in medical school because the difference between undergrad and medical school is there's so much more material. It's really important to develop a great foundation. So what I like to do before I go on a little bit more is to talk to Donna Walker and also Dr. Kumar. I'll let Donna go first. Donna, can you explain how we work with students starting from ARP through the basic sciences and how we build a foundation for success?
Absolutely. So, like you mentioned, being in medical school is unlike any other program you'll experience. The volume and pace of the curriculum of medical school is really fast and it's really intense, which means you have to have really strong learning skills in order to do well. So, that's what a learning specialist does. We meet with students in one-on-one appointments, we have workshops, and we have classes that help you learn more effectively and efficiently. So, on your journey applying for medical school, I'm sure you've heard the analogy that studying in medical school is like trying to drink water out of a fire hose, or that you're never going to sleep once you start medical school. Like we hear a lot of things going into the process, and the reason we have all this support is to ensure that you can sleep, you can have that study life balance where you're still taking care of yourself and you're able to do well. So what that looks like is in our ARP, which is that pre-semester that some students do, you get a lot of support there with content and kind of giving you the foundation for medical school. But you also have a dedicated class where we talk you through all of these essential skills through activities, through assignments, through learning inventories that help you understand your strengths as a learner, which is what brought you this far, as well as your gaps and any areas you can improve before you get into medical school. So students in that program have one-on-one appointments, they have workshops, and they, as I mentioned, have a class with assignments, with dedicated class time, that I know that they appreciate a lot because when they get into EBS or into med, they report that it's a lot easier having had that kind of safe space at the beginning to really explore their strengths and really learn how to learn. Once you get into EBS or med, we also have workshops. We also encourage students to meet with us. We'll send emails after all the block exams. We have workshops that we advertise, and we're really flexible in kind of reaching you where you are and giving you the support that you need. So, a lot of times, I think a common thing I hear from students, It's along the lines of, my friend had a question, and since I'm here, can I ask you? And I'll obviously answer that question, but I think one of the essential things people typically may not know about learning when they come into medical school is that learning is very learner specific. So everybody's coming into medical school with their own profile of strengths, with their own backgrounds, with different courses, right? Different interests. So the way that you approach a particular course or a particular topic might be different from the way the person next to you kind of figures that out and the way that they excel, which we've probably seen in any context. So, one of the reasons we really push our one-on-one appointments is because we can spend an hour or 45 minutes or sometimes 30 minutes, depending on how much time you have, to really drill down into what works for you and help you develop your specific skills. So you don't have to feel like everyone in class seems to be understanding. Why am I not understanding? We help you with a range of things. I know the president mentioned test anxiety, test taking skills, time management. But it also includes things like selecting the main idea, information processing, all of that. How do I prepare for a lecture? What do I do during a lecture, right? How many times do I need to study? How do I test myself? A lot of that people are still figuring out, and we use a lot of evidence-based scientific strategies when it comes to cognition and metacognition to ensure that you have that foundation. And we provide that support from ARP to med, all the way up to when you leave St. Kitts and we have workshops and sessions with the students who are in Maine. So the support never really stops, but I'll turn over to Dr. Kumar so he can talk a little bit more about that in Maine.
Yeah, Dr. Kumar, but we're going to get to Maine. We're not ready for Maine yet, but talk a little bit about the basic sciences, the faculty interaction, the advisement sessions, and how all students are assigned to faculty advisors at the very beginning, but they also have a class, they also have opportunity to meet with faculty throughout the semester. So, and then at a later point, we'll talk about fifth semester, but I also at a later point want to talk about integration of clinical material into the basic science program, how that goes from first semester on, and then talk a little bit about ICM as well as ICM2, and then our new USMLE approach. So there's got a lot to be covered, but for now, talk about the faculty.
Yes. I just want to tell something about myself and how I was impressed when I joined UMHS. Even though I've spent more than 25 years into medical education, I've spent 15 years of those at UMHS. All right. But I can tell you one thing. I still remember my first semester at UMHS. What impressed me the most was I was just walking into the campus and I bumped into President Ross. I didn't know it was President Ross because I met his father, not him. But one thing that impressed me most was the class size, the accessibility to the faculty, the building size, the location. Oh, I was impressed. And I didn't even think those days that I'm going to spend this many years at UMHS. Yes, what is the specialty of the UMHS? I think is the student faculty ratio, the kind of qualification experience they bring into teaching. I can count on each of my colleagues whom I've worked over the last 15 years. They are dedicated. They are available at working hours, outside the working hours. And you can see that it's 8:30 in St. Kitts, and we're all here to support you guys and to encourage you to join medical education. So yes, we have highly qualified faculty, not only having experience and qualification, it's their interest or they go out of the way to be available and make you succeed in your education. And I think that's what I like about UMHS, and that's what made me to stay here, and I continue to grow with the university. So I can definitely vouch for that. Everything President Ross said, we have an excellent campus, excellent faculty. The program has a traditional component as well as the high-end facilities, whether it is the anatomy lab or the ICM lab. We have a simulation center to provide you with excellent clinical education. And of course, the flexibility of the curriculum itself You can decide to spend four semesters or 5 semesters in the basic science. And again, as we talked about the simulation center, it's not just the basic science. We connect you to the clinical education starting from the med one. So from day one, you are not only learning the basic science, you are getting introduced into, your dream of practicing medicine and what it takes to be an efficient physician. So that's where we start with. And of course, throughout the basic science, again, as I said, you have the opportunity to be in the med program, or you can take it easy, go into extended basic science program where you can take the same basic science over a period of 5 semesters in the island. You don't have the pressure of have to do with the 4 semesters. You can do it in 5 semesters. And while we are focusing on training you for the basic science, which is required for you to understand the clinical implications, we also kind of encourage you to, getting into research. We support you in that line so that, you can compete with the US trained medical students so that you're on par with the people in the United States are getting educated in the States. So, but we provide you that tools which you need with the basic science on the island. And then, of course, we also train you to go into the hospitals in the United States and get the clinical education. Anything else, President Russ?
No, that's good. I'm going to stay tuned. I'll be calling you back in a few seconds. Traditional basic science curriculum modeled after U.S. medical schools, where you take your traditional anatomy, histology, physiology, pharmacology, microbiology, biochemistry. And all these courses have integrated clinical material into them because, as we know, USMLE Step 1 is mostly clinical vignettes. So you need to make sure that there's a correlation between the basic science material and the clinical material. So that's incorporated into all the basic science courses. We've mapped every course to the USMLE standards. And we work very closely with the National Board of Medical Examiners. In fact, they will be doing a webinar very shortly in St. Kitts on how to utilize their resources with regards to preparing for USMLE Step 1. But one of the things that's really important to us, many, many years ago, I affiliated with the National Board of Medical Examiners and as one of the first to bring in shelf examinations, basic and clinical science shelf examinations. And we were the first to get the online shelf examinations. National Board of Medical Examiners developed these examinations, final examinations for all the U.S. medical schools. And our students sit for the same examination. So at the end of the day, you'll get a review and a diagnostic evaluation of your performance on each of these shelf examinations, and we give them in many of the basic science courses. So, and you'll see how you compare to your counterparts in the United States. So each time you sit for that, it better prepares you for USMLE, because don't forget, NBME is the same body that develops USMLE Step 1. So they're using USMLE style questions, both in style and format. So you have access to that throughout the basic sciences as final examinations in many of the courses. In addition to that, what we've done instead of just block examinations, we also have weekly quizzes with USMLE style questions. That's really important to keep you engaged, but to see how well you're performing. And if you're not doing well on these questions, gives you an opportunity to meet with your faculty member to go through that material. So weekly quizzes, USMLE style. The other part of this is that medical school is really intense. And there is a fair percentage of people who have test anxiety. And there's a philosophy and belief that the more questions that you answer, the more examinations you answer, the more you're put into an environment where you have to sit for quizzes and tests, the more you overcome that. But in addition to that, you get to work with the learning specialist, but we also have a team of counselors that will work with you both in St. Kitts and Maine, to ensure that if you have any form of test anxiety, you can continue to meet with your counselor to work through various methods that we know will help you overcome that anxiety. So, weekly quizzes, shelf examinations, access to clinical material all the way through the basic science program, and traditional curriculum. Um, what I like to do is bring Kirthi on. Kirthi, you went through the whole academic program. You started out in ARP. Maybe tell us a little bit about your experiences in the basic science program. Also, you might want to elaborate a little bit on Kirthi, in between starting her residency, had some downtime, so was able to come down to St. Kitts and help out in the anatomy lab as well as ICM. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about the experiences there and how good of an education you think that students were getting in those two areas.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Kirthi. Currently a third year surgical resident at DMC Sinai Grace, and I was at UMHS about, I want to say 5 years ago now. Feels crazy to say that. But thank you all for being here, and please ask any questions you have. I'm more than happy to answer questions because truly choosing the right medical school for you is one of the most important decisions you'll make, and we want to make sure this is the right school for you. And so please feel free to ask any questions. When you're looking for medical school, looking for curriculum that matches how you learn best is important. And what UMHS really works on is making sure that we understand that everyone learns differently and the material you're going to learn is the same, but we really want you to learn it best so that you can succeed both clinically and on your shelf exams. Because at the end of the day, you want to pass your exams and you want to kill your not surgical, but all your rotations, and to be able to match into your dream residency and then start working. And UMHS understands that everyone learns differently, so they try to make sure that you have all the skills that you can to succeed, both in test taking, both in how to interpret the curriculum and how to work in small groups. They really have this very holistic way of approaching everything, which I really appreciate. There's also opportunities to make you the best version of yourself. For example, I was a TA every semester, and those helped me develop skills that I still use in this day as a resident to teach my medical students, and my patients on information that they need to know. There's also a variety of clubs that you can join based on your interest to kind of figure out more of what you're interested in. And definitely the ICM program is unmatched. One thing that's important is you have this basic science information that you need to be able to pass your exams, but you also need to be a good clinician. And the skills that you learn, typically in a lot of medical schools, you don't really learn that until you get into your surgical rotations. But what I really appreciated about UMHS is that they start that early on. They understand that these skills are not innate. These are learned skills that you do need to learn and do need to work on to develop. So from your very first semester, they start introducing the language, they start introducing the skills that you need to know, how to use a stethoscope, how to auscultate, how to look at different EKG findings, which is all cardiac rhythms. They really bring that in early, which is important. Even in your first semester, you start learning how to take a history. You think that's something easy, talking to a patient and getting a history, but it truly is an art. And by the fact that we start early in our first and second semesters, by the time we get to our clinical rotations, we can really shine because here now you're working in the real world. You're working in your clinical rotations alongside physicians, alongside other residents, and you want to feel competent and feel like you know what you're doing and be in a safe space to learn. And the fact that we have all these skills already that we've been practicing, we can really shine in our rotations, which is important. Is there anything else I can elaborate on, President Ross?
Sorry, I was typing a message. Sean, Sean, you should make sure everybody knows that they can use the chat to ask questions. Or I can
Yeah,
just remind.
Sham and I are answering questions there. So
Oh, are they in there? I'm not seeing any questions.
there's a few answered already. And so just as a reminder, just you can use the Q&A box to type in your questions as we go. We'll answer them one by one, and then we'll throw a few out to our panelists as well.
Great. Thank you, Kirthi. So while we have Dr. Kumar here, and by the way, he's also Associate Clinical Dean, so we have to update that slide, Sean. But Dr. Kumar, maybe you could explain the importance of ICM. So understand ICM is in your last semester in St. Kitts. You've taken all your almost all your basic sciences. The remaining part of that semester is Path 2 and pharmacology, which also are two critical courses for USMLE Step 1. But ICM 1 and then ICM 2 really prepare you to enter into the clinical program. And maybe you could talk a little bit about ICM 1 now. How we utilize our facilities in terms of our skills lab, ground rounds, um, and um, and that experience there. And Kirti, I'm sorry, I was typing. Did you talk a little any about your experiences in ICM?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Kumar.
Yes. I think, as I said, mentioned earlier, we start clinical education from the semester one. When you are learning about the human body in the first semester, we introduce you how to talk to the patients, how to touch the patient, how to feel, listen, hear, So we start from the med one. And with each semester, when you're learning from how the body looks like, how the body works, and how the various diseases affect. So throughout those 4 or 5 semesters, we add your clinical skills in terms of how to interact with the patient, how to examine a patient, how to come arrive at a diagnosis, and how to make a plan. So this goes not just once, it goes slowly, steadily as you progress throughout the basic science. When you start learning about the diseases which affect the body, that's when we really make it even more interesting. We teach you about how to understand the symptoms, the language the patient is talking to you, so that how to hear and make a connection to the disease. That's where we start in ICM 1. So for that, it's a skill, it's an art of how to talk to the patients and hear him out and make a connection as to what he's suffering from. And then once you're heard, you need to look into the body and see what are the signs of that telltale evidence of the disease. So you need to learn to examine, use the tools. It could be a stethoscope, it could be an EKG, it could be an X-ray. We introduce you to all parts of that towards the end of the basic science in the island, which we call Introduction to Clinical Medicine, Part 1. So as I said, the 4 important tools in patient care is to take a good history, do a focused examination, arrive at a diagnosis, and suggest whether it's a surgical or medical, what the plan is. Okay, and those are the skills we teach you throughout the basic science in an environment which we call a simulation center. We use standardized patients. These are the patients who are basically actors, but they are well trained to simulate a real patient. So that way, you don't have the additional stress of dealing with the real patients, and you're not responsible for the outcome of their health, but you can learn the nuances of the history and physical examination. To support that, we also have, world-class facility in terms of mannequins. So today, it's all simulations, right? So we use, you know, mannequins which are low end to middle end to high end mannequins which can simulate a real patient. The one you see in this picture, you can see that a team of medical students are working to kind of simulate an interdisciplinary approach to a critically care patient. Right. So we even expose you to a situation like this where the mannequins can speak to you, you can hear their heartbeat, you can listen to their lung sounds, you can even see their cardiac rhythm, and either you can save or, and succeed in your patient care, but in an environment which is simulated. right? So we have an excellent simulation center with, thanks to Dr. President Raz, he is kind of passionate about medical education, and he is supported in our efforts to bring in, mannequins which can simulate in these aspects. And so that way, you don't have to wait to really see a patient with diseases. You can simulate all those things on these mannequins and learn them even before you really see a real patient. President Raz.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. So another area that I think makes us unique is our dedication to ensuring you're going to be successful on step one and step two of USMLE. And we've incorporated, as we said earlier, USMLE style questions throughout the basic science program. We are affiliated with UWorld. So in the last semester in St. Kitts, we've created a review program utilizing UWorld and making it an integrated program, meaning that it's integrated with faculty from many of the basic science courses that work in small groups with students to go over UWorld questions, especially in areas that are high yield questions, to get ready and get started. And then in your first semester in Maine, in your main semester, we then have a course, and I'll describe that in much more detail, but very unique, very different. What I consider maybe the best review program of all the Caribbean medical schools, and so I'm going to explain that. Donna, maybe you could talk a little bit about what we're doing in Maine in terms of that last semester in Maine and how preparing these students for USMLE and how it gets them ready for the main integrated review program.
Sure. So basically, throughout your basic sciences, you are doing these separate courses that all build upon each other and give you the foundation so that you have a really solid understanding of the different classes, right? So you've done anatomy, you've done biochemistry, you've done physiology, you've done histology. You have a solid understanding of all the systems at that level. What's really exciting is that when you get towards the end of the program, so when you're in your fifth semester or EBS 5 and your final semester in St. Kitts in particular, you start integrating all of this information together with those guided multiple choice question sessions. So those sessions really expose you to that deeper understanding, that kind of integration and clinical and critical reasoning that you need to really make sure that you don't just understand anything in isolation, but you understand what to do if a patient came before you and you had to figure it out, like you will in your career, right? So we offer these sessions both in St. Kitts and in Maine, and students tend to really appreciate being able to talk through questions, be in a group setting where we try to set some norms around it being a safe enough space so they can learn from each other, make mistakes in front of each other, and kind of still understand and share tips and tricks and strategies with each other, as well as have access to the St. Kitts faculty who usually host those sessions so that you still keep that relationship. If you have questions, you can reach out, you can connect with the faculty. And we try to get you, especially in those sessions, to understand test taking, understand the USMLE recommended approach to multiple choice questions so that you're reading questions, you're interpreting the right question, you're answering the right question, you're successfully eliminating all of the good but not ideal or perfect answer choices or best answer choices. And so it's really a refinement of everything you've experienced so far. It brings together all of the information and it helps you see it in a way that helps you to be as ready as you can be for USMLE. As well, we kind of work through things like being able to take questions within a particular time. So you're developing a range of skills that ensure that when you go to take that long standardized exams, you are not intimidated by the questions. You are prepared to think clinically, you're prepared to think critically, and you can fit all of the questions in the time that you have.
So one of the things that I think is unique in this approach is because we have 2 semesters of review. And UWorld is considered the premier review program, and they have approximately 3,000 questions that you can go through in their database. Our faculty and our learning specialists work both with the students in St. Kitts as well as the students in Maine. Um, and we provide kind of two resources, some that are content providers and some are facilitators. So help us understand what a facilitator does in terms of like that you're reviewing the question, but you're not answering the question. You're teaching the students how to understand the question and how to answer it, but they answer the question. Maybe I just said.
Absolutely. And it's exactly what you said. So as you will see as you progress through medical school, these types of questions can be long, they can be complex, they really require you to have a deep and detailed understanding of the material. And I think we've all done a test where we weren't quite sure what they were asking. So, what we're doing is we're helping you to understand, am I answering the right question? Am I identifying the right clues? Am I able to determine the right answer choice and choose between those two really similar answer choices that can kind of throw us off one way or the other? So when we're facilitating those sessions, our goal is to really build up that skill of multiple choice question test taking, your self-testing and your test taking strategies. So we're not necessarily going into the content with you, but UWorld does have detailed explanations and it's a really solid Q bank. So it does explain to you why things are wrong and why things are right. But we're really getting you to understand how to practice test taking and self-testing on your own and in a way that helps you to eliminate the answer choices that are incorrect and select the correct answer choices. So that's kind of our goal with facilitation, as opposed to just giving you another lecture or just covering off the same information that you've already heard. We want you to look at it a bit different, and we want you to look at it a little bit more critically than you may have looked at it before.
So the important part is that, as we said before, all the way through the basic sciences, you're sitting for shelf examinations, which are USMLE style questions. You're having quizzes that are USMLE style quizzes. You're meeting with faculty to go over examinations to make sure that you're on the right course. Your attrition rate is limited to 4%, which and I have to tell you, there's some schools have attrition rates anywhere as high as 30 to 50%, which is an issue with accreditors around the Caribbean right now, as well as the U.S. Department of Education. So as far as I'm concerned, we're doing a really good job. We're taking your hand, we're holding it, we're making sure that you're going to be there. We're a small school, we're basically like a family. So we want to take care of you, and we feel morally obligated to do that. Um, One of the things I did want to show them while we have Kirthi still here is a little bit about the outside shots of the campus as well as island pictures, because one of the things that you all are going to do is you're going to live in this unbelievably beautiful environment for 2 years. I don't know how many on this call have been to the Caribbean before, but it's probably one of the most beautiful places. I've been in St. Kitts since 1983 when I started the veterinary school. I love the people. I love the island. It's beautiful. It's just everything is just wonderful. The water is great. It's great hiking. The catamaran trips to Nevis or to snorkeling are amazing. The beaches are perfect. There's lots to do. The food is great. But Kirthi, maybe you could, since you were a student there, tell us about life in St. Kitts and enjoying the island.
Definitely really missing it right now. I just walked my dog in the snow and the cold. It just snowed for the first time this winter 2 days ago, and my dog, I actually got on the island of St. Kitts. Her name is Kitsy, and I just walked her in the snow, and I was like, "Damn, it would be nice to be back on the island." So when I first went to the island, I hadn't been there before. I had seen pictures. Obviously, when I interviewed, I had asked some questions, but it was my first experience being away from home like this. And so at first, I didn't really know where I wanted to stay. I decided to stay in an area called Frigate Bay, which is probably about a 5 minute drive from this picture right here. Beautiful, nice weather, I stayed in Frigate Bay, which is very safe. I stayed at the Marriott there, mainly because Marriott's a name that I was familiar with. So I was like, okay, maybe it'll be a good place to start as an introduction. And then I ended up staying right beside the campus, actually. I was walking distance. I walked to school every day and back, which was great. But the one thing that's really nice about St. Kitts too is that the way that our bus system is set up in place for UMHS, they actually pick you up at a common area very close to your house, so you're not really walking anywhere, and then they'll take you to campus. There's buses all day. The last bus, so for someone like me, I like to study on campus typically. So I would take the first bus to campus. I would stay there all day. The library is beautiful and it's usually open until about 11 p.m. And then I'd take the last bus off campus, and it's nice because it takes you right directly into your to where you'd stay. So it's really strategically and well set up in terms of the bus system that the campus offers. Aside from that, just, waking up, studying all day sucks at baseline, but it's nice when the library is beautiful, it's air conditioned. You go outside, you have these great views. It just, it's a mood booster for sure. I lived literally about a 3-minute walk from our campus right here. So my bedroom view is actually this water scene right here. So it was fantastic. But definitely the way our campus is set up, they really try to make sure you're safe in terms of where you're going. There's also a nice gym on campus, which was nice. When I stayed at the Marriott, they had their own gym, and in Frigate Bay, a few of the residential areas that you can stay at does have their own gym. But on campus, if you don't, if like from for me, since I live so close, I would just utilize the school facility gym, which is great. So it's a very, very nice campus. And in the anatomy lab, I can't even start about that because it's just so well created. Um, and I went to the University of Guelph for my undergrad, so we actually dissect here. I would have to say my anatomy professor actually came here, and she's the one who told me about UMHS the first time I heard it. She said they have a great anatomy lab, and based on that, I was kind of sold. And then the fact that I got to go back and teach here, it's just anatomy, I can't even start, but it's dissection is such a unique experience that you can get. There's one thing to learn from books, but really being able to see and appreciate the anatomy, the physiology, how things work together. It's easy to learn about nerves and arteries, but to see how their proximity and how they function to make the organ work, it's a whole nother level. It really helps you just put things together. So the lab and being able to dissect is such a great experience. And it says 6:1 cadaver ratio, but really you kind of split the body. So it's really 3:1 or 4:1, which is amazing. And the fact that you're working in small groups just really helps you create bonds with your fellow co students because you're all in your first semester. And the way they also set it up, it's really holistic in another sense. So for example, in histology or anatomy or even in your PD class, if you're learning about the heart, you're learning about the anatomy of the heart in anatomy, then you're also learning about how it functions in another class, and then histology of the heart in another class, and it's just very cohesive. So it's a very thought out curriculum as well.
Kirthi, the dean of Guelph was down a week ago, and he loves the island and loves our campus.
Well,
So he's going back. It looks like articulation agreement is executed, and we're about to develop a summer program for students from Guelph and Memorial. It's a summer 4-week program, and it's an enrichment program where students get a real sense of what medical school is all about. You'll get to work with many of the faculty in the basic science program, as well as faculty from Memorial and Guelph, especially in the anatomy area. And this will be, great for students who have no clue of what medical school is all about. And it really gives them a good sense of what to expect once they graduate and once they go on to medical school. So and that's starting this summer, so I'm thrilled about it.
That's amazing. I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Well, you're going to be a part of it because they've already told me they want a Guelph student there.
Oh, would love to. But honestly, med school, there's no way to really describe it until you start. It's a lot of work, but the fact that everyone cares at UMHS, I think that's the true thing that's the difference between UMHS and other schools. Like for example, I was at U of G and I remember in my what's that class? Organic chemistry. class, the teachers come up to you and they say, oh, like 1 in 3 of you are going to fail. The culture at UMHS is not like that. No one's going to say 1 in 3 of you are going to fail. They're going to say, hey, if you're not doing well, what can we do to make you do better for you to be able to understand the information? For example, close to exam time in the anatomy lab, they have extra hours. They're going to stay late. The professors, they want to stay late so that you have the time to study and take the time to understand everything. So a very unique culture at UMHS, which I think is important because they want you to be the best version of yourself. At the end of the day, you want to be the best version of yourself for your patients.
Thank you, Kirthi. So after you complete the basic science program, and Sean will describe the different programs we have to enter into the program, from ARP to straight 4 semester program to an extended basic science program. We'll talk a little bit about that later. So you complete the basic science program, you now enter into our 5th semester in Maine, where you take two courses. One is Introduction to Clinical Medicine 2, and then our integrated review program. I'll let Dr. Kumar talk a little bit about the ICM component. But what we try to do is try to kind of make sure that you seamlessly transition from the basic sciences and the clinical program. Remember, you're going to major teaching hospitals throughout the United States. It's the same training programs that students who attend U.S. medical schools go to. So you're in the same hospital and with similar preceptors, maybe the same preceptors, and you want to compete at their level. So maybe, and you could talk a little bit, Dr. Kumar, about the benefits of ICM2, how we transition them, how we make sure their clinical skills are up to speed, how they're mentored by our preceptor MDs, and our affiliations with local clinics and hospitals to get them prepared.
All right. Yes, I agree with you. We don't send you to the hospitals without proper training. We make sure that you're prepared to deal with the challenges in the U.S. hospitals and patient population. So what we do in Maine is we have highly qualified practicing physicians, but they work with you in our hospital-like setup we have in our Portland, Maine campus, where you go through training in how to interact, take the history from the patients, and then while you're doing all those history, physical, there is an attending in the room. He's observing you to kind of guide you and point out your strengths and weaknesses while doing that in a non-threatening environment. Once we put that through, then we also make sure that you are exposed to real life patients, and in terms of going to the various hospitals in and around the Portland, Maine campus. So we don't have to travel too much. The maximum you're going to travel is about an hour, but you will be working with the patients under the guidance of the physicians in those hospitals. So we do train you in the main before you start your actual clinical semesters, from semester 6 to semester 10. So this is what we call the 5th semester program, where we not only train you to take that step 1 examination, but we also train you to make sure that you have the skills and the tools that is required for patient care. Right? It could be, interviewing the patient. It could be documenting those interactions in terms of SOAP note writing. All right. It could be some basic clinical skills like putting an IV line, or intubation, or how to get an EKG and interpret. So we kind of take you through a variety of skills in that 4-month semester program, while you're not only preparing for clinical medicine, but you also preparing for your step 1 USMLE examination. I just try to present this in a nutshell, but of course, President Ross has already explained the full details.
Thanks, Dr. Kumar. I'm going to digress for a second. I just saw a question. And I think I forgot an area I was supposed to cover. So, so one of the questions asked, what's our accreditation? So there's two primary accreditations that we currently have. One is that we're accredited by the country of St. Kitts. That's a requirement that's necessary for ECFMG certification. So they've adopted standards really comparable to what you would expect in the U.S., United States. And we were recently reviewed by St. Kitts, and what was amazing is that uh, at the exit, it's a two-day, it's a very intense process. You have to supply a database, you have to answer questions. There's thousands of pages of documentation you have to provide. It takes a year at a minimum to prepare for a site visit, and then they come down to the island. They meet with students, they meet with faculty, they meet with the clinical department, administrators, you name it. They look at every aspect of the university. So at the exit interview, I'm sitting there, and I've gone through this for many different site visits, and there, you never get away with just a clean site visit. There's always something they're going to find. And so I'm sitting there with the deans and the provost and the site visitors, and I have my pad out, my pencil, and I'm ready for them to start. And first thing they said to me is, "Put down your pencil." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well," he goes, "we didn't find anything wrong. We found zero sites. This is one of the best schools that we've ever seen, and we visited and we've site visited many of the Caribbean medical schools, and we feel that you are a model for all other Caribbean medical schools." So once again, it's a kind of a testimonial to prove about the caliber and the quality of the education. Last year we were, and that was for either 5 year, 6 year, I can't remember. 5 years. Um, and then then ACCM is a body out of Ireland. They've adopted the LCME standards of accreditation. LCME stands for the Liaison Committee on Medical Education. LCME is the body that's been empowered by the U.S. Department of Education to accredit U.S. medical schools. So our accrediting body, ACCM, has adopted the LCME standards both of education, LCME standards both as written and applied. um, and we have to go through annual site visits of all our clinical hospitals. They are required to come down to St. Kitts periodically to do site visits. We had to provide annual reports to them. And last year we had a full site visit down to St. Kitts, full review of both the basic and clinical science program. Once again, we had to provide a database document. We had to provide supplemental material, thousands of pages of documentation, self-study, surveys from the student body, everything that you can imagine. And once again, that it was absolutely amazing. Zero sites, and they produce these reports and provide these reports to the U.S. Department of Education through the body called the NCFMEA, National Council for Foreign Medical Education and Accreditation. This is the body that you need to have your accreditation recognized by so that you could qualify for licensure and residency in the United States. So if you're looking at all these other Caribbean schools, you want to make sure that that school accreditation is recognized by NCFMEA. Otherwise, you could have issues with residencies licensure. Anyway, zero sites from them also. So, and think about that. They are now applying the U.S. standards of accreditation, and they're looking at every aspect of the program, from the infrastructure to the academic programs, curriculum, clinical programs, every aspect of it. And we had zero sites. So once again, I believe a testimony to the quality of the education of the program. Okay, so I covered that. Now let me finish up on the fifth semester in Maine. So Dr. Kumar just explained what ICM2 it does. Um, but what I think find really, really important is that in the past we used to provide primarily a Kaplan review program. Kaplan Medical is one of the most well-known review programs in the United States. They provided diagnostic examinations, question banks, and brought in faculty from U.S. medical schools to provide content Our students felt that the questions were not as strong as UWorld, and so we've decided to replace all the Kaplan questions with UWorld questions. We keep Kaplan on as the content provider, so they give daily lectures in the areas that are most high yield areas in a 15-week program. Uh, but UWorld is now a part of that program. So you have didactic lectures, then you have a required time to spend with UWorld questions. And then we brought in our faculty from the basic sciences to work as both content providers and facilitators going over UWorld questions in small groups. And in addition to that, we also utilize our learning specialists both in St. Kitts and in Maine to work as facilitators to ensure that you get through all those U World questions. And we feel that at the end of the day, you're going to sit for instead of the Kaplan final examination, the comprehensive basic science examination, which is developed by the National Board of Medical Examiners, and it's on par with USMLE Step 1. So if you pass that examination, we feel you're ready and prepared to sit for step 1, and we want you to pass that examination. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no other Caribbean medical school that's going to provide the resources that we provide, starting in the basic sciences, culminating in the fifth semester, integration of basic science faculty in both review programs, both as content providers and facilitators, and utilization of both UWorld and the comprehensive basic science examination. I think you're not going to see a better review program. And once again, it's another reason why our attrition rate is only 4% because of the resources that we provide you to ensure your success. Um, and I think I've covered that. Was there anything else I missed on the review program, Dr. Kumar?
Yeah, I think you covered most of it. Like, and as you said, we are continuing to work. We will, wherever there is an opportunity to make improvements, we have been continuously making them. So we definitely make sure that having learned all the basic science subjects in the island, we take a different approach when you come to Maine, because this is where the 2 years worth of material you have learned in the island, you are going to all put together in a 14 weeks program, and then you learn to kind of focus on what is that high yield which is going to be useful for you to pass that step examination. So that's the major focus what happens in Maine. So for that we use two kind of approach. One is, as you rightly said, the resources in terms of content, and then we also have an approach called assessment driven learning, meaning you do questions, you learn from them, and then test yourself each week as you progress through the program. So we encourage you to do the number of questions when the faculty have taught you on a particular topic, reviewing high yield material, but you also test your knowledge by doing those questions. So that way you learn from taking those examination, which are the same questions or similar questions, which are asked in the step 1 examination. So this is what we call a two-time approach. One is the content review and then assessment-driven learning.
So after you complete the fifth semester, you've passed CBSE, you sit for USMLE Step 1, you then enter into the clinical program, and we're affiliated with approximately 26 teaching hospitals throughout the United States, Puerto Rico, and Canada. We probably have the largest number of hospitals, if there's anyone from Puerto Rico here, the largest number of affiliations out of any of the Caribbean schools. We have 6 affiliations. We just added San Juan City Hospital to also our Ponce affiliations. So we have quite a few hospitals to provide to our students. Uh, and what happens is when you initially complete the fifth semester past step 1, your first year into the clinical program, you take your core rotations, which is what we see here. Um, and you have to go to our affiliated sites, and that's where you have a specific curriculum. All the preceptors are faculty of UMHS. They're required to do a variety of things, not only teach towards the curriculum, they're supposed to provide you with a midterm evaluation, mid-rotation evaluation, and a semester evaluation. And the mid-semester is focused on making sure that you don't have any deficiencies. And if you do, giving you time to make those up as you could progress through the clinical program. At the end of each rotation, you sit for another NBME shelf examination. You have to pass that examination. Once again, these shelf examinations ultimately prepare you for USMLE Step 2CK. Um, and then after you complete your core rotations, you enter into your senior year for electives. And students have the option to go either to our affiliated sites or any of thousands of teaching hospitals throughout the United States, where you just coordinate with the clinical department to get approval to do the rotations there. And we always urge students to go to hospitals they're interested in doing residencies, because remember, residency directors get thousands of unknown applications each year. But if you've had an opportunity to rotate at that hospital, they know you, how competent, qualified, your dedication, how hard you work, and it gives you a leg up over all the other students in terms of residency. Also, in addition to that, we have a very strong alumni association that, people have gone through and have shown how good they are, and it helps ease you through the process because they know about the reputation and the quality and the caliber of the institution. Kirti, how did ICM to prepare you, and how did you feel when you entered into the clinical program? And did you feel that you were on par with your U.S. counterparts?
It's actually a common question I get from a lot of students who are looking to get into medical school, especially going into a Caribbean medical school. Honestly, the one thing about UMHS that really helped me feel confident in my clinical rotations is the fact that we integrate our clinical skills so early on. Definitely, I think regardless whatever school you go to, there's always going to be some imposter syndrome when you start your clinical rotations because it's like you spend 2 years in books and, studying and practicing, and now you're actually expected to perform. And you're with other students. There's always that, comparison is a thief of joy, they say. But the fact that we learn not only how, like, the clinical skills, but how to history take, how to write SOAP notes. Once again, all of those skills, they're things that you work on. They're things you develop. They're not just innate things that you're expected to have. There's an art to it. And one thing that really I think sets the bar with UMHS is the ICM2 program in Maine. The I think Dr. Kumar already spoke about it, but the what's it called? The standard patient encounters. I think that's what it was called. Might have a different name now, but that is just such a game changer. It's such a unique component that we offer. Once again, you have these actors who have an ailment, and you have 10 minutes to go get a history, an accurate history. You get history, you do a physical exam, you come up with your assessment, you give them the plan, you educate them, and then someone else is in the room and they're listening, and then they take all the information and they present it. And being able to take that information and concisely present it to your attendings is such a important key skill to have, because you do that in clinicals. It's a skill that you actually have to perform, and having this experience to practice, get critiqued on, get feedback in a safe setting really just is a game changer. And I think with having that experience, I felt a lot more confident, and I kind of already knew what I had to do in clinical rotations, and I think it just gave me a leg up and helped overcome that imposter skills, that imposter syndrome. Because ultimately, if you have the opportunity to practice and develop the skills, you will feel more confident. And I think that's what helped me in my clinical rotations.
Thanks, Kirti. So right now we have 26 affiliated hospitals. Those hospitals are located in New York, Michigan, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Georgia, Florida, Canada, California, and Puerto Rico. Our goal is always to look to expand clinical programs. I'm about to expand into another teaching hospital in California. I'm also my new provost was the dean and provost of a couple different medical schools in the UK, and we're exploring the opportunities also to develop clinical programs in UK. We're also looking at Scotland and Ireland as possibilities too. So there may be opportunities in the future. Also, we're affiliated with Ponce School of Medicine, which is an LCME accredited medical school. And when you rotate there, you're rotating under the banner of Ponce. And they have quite a few hospitals that you can choose from. In fact, we have an abundance of hospitals in the Puerto Rico area. One of the things I can say that also nice for the students from Puerto Rico, being in medical education since '78, I know a significant back in the day, significant percentage of the students used to go to Guadalajara, which was over in Mexico or Dominican Republic. But now students are gravitating more to UMHS because one, it's only a short plane ride away from Puerto Rico, and a new airlines just started up, and they're providing direct flights from Puerto Rico to St. Kitts. Don't ask me the price, but I think I heard it was reasonable. And that's effective as of this December. So that's exciting news for the students from Puerto Rico. Beyond the fact that have six affiliated maybe seven now, seven affiliated hospitals in Puerto Rico. And the most recent one to come on board was San Juan City Hospital, and I believe they almost have the full core complement. Maybe not all of them, but most of them, and quite a few electives there too. But what I like is that at the end of the day, you're fully prepared for USMLE Step 2 CK because you've taken all the clinical shelf examinations, and we also require students to pass the CCSE, the Clinical Comprehensive Shelf Examination, to qualify for Step 2. And once you pass that, you sit. And the last I heard, we had somewhere around a 94% pass rate, which is on Step 2 CK. So that's a really good pass rate. So, what I was going to mention about Puerto Rico is because there's so many students rotating there, the reputation of UMHS is very strong, and our students are actually being given residency opportunities without going through the match, which is kind of unique. 90% of the students in the United States generally go through the match, but in Puerto Rico, the students are so well received; they're being offered residency programs directly into resident being offered residency opportunities directly. So that's a big advantage for students who attend UMHS. Um, and generally, our success rate both in the United States and Puerto Rico are extremely high. And students who are from Canada, they also have an opportunity to go back to Canada. And we're going to see more and more Canadians come because we're affiliating with Guelph and Memorial. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Canadian students in the future. And Canadians are all well received because they have an opportunity to do the residencies either in Canada or United States. And so they have the best of two worlds. Kirthi, what was your experience like in applying for residencies?
For me, for applying for residencies, it wasn't it was for me the hardest part was trying to figure out what I wanted to apply to. I wasn't too sure if I wanted internal medicine versus surgery. I really liked the fact that in internal medicine there's a lot of fellowships that are very diverse, like ICU, GI. So initially in my fourth year, I was kind of t tailoring it more towards internal medicine. But then halfway through, I was like, I want something more procedural. So I applied to surgery. And luckily, once I decided surgery was what I wanted to do, I kind of tailored all my electives to surgery, and that helped me get my letter of recommendations. And then we have a great staff that at UMHS who helps us with our um, like personal, not our personal statement. They help us with interview skills, which is really nice. They do mock interviews for us, which is really useful, and helps like, practice and eliminate some of the fears before you start your actual interview season. They also help review our personal statements. So there's a lot of ancillary staff that really helps support us with the application process itself. And then you just, you apply and you interview, and then the rest is it's kind of a lottery system at some of the things. There's a lot of cutoffs, such as step scores, for example. But luckily, there's a lot of support with prepping for our steps. The nice thing is there's a lot of freedom with our fourth year and our electives and setting them up, which is important to get those letters. So it can be a tedious process. I'm about to restart that process next year for fellowship. So not something I'm really looking forward to, but I wish I had the same support I had back when I was applying for residency. But there's a lot of support, which is great.
And then the thing I'll tell you, Kirthi, is that we're getting all the stats right now from our alumni, and we have a significant percentage of people who've gone through fellowships in the United States. So I would reach out to the alumni organization. I know you're already in touch with Michelle, but through the network, there might be people out there could also provide you a help and assistance with regards to fellowships. And Patrick also continues to work with people once you've completed the residencies and help with fellowships. So I'd reach out to Patrick too.
That's the one thing about UMHS. When you're joining UMHS, you're not just joining another school. It's truly a family and a community. Because when you're in your rotations, I remember when I first delivered my first baby, my OB rotation, the resident who was with me was another UMHS grad, who is a OB resident at that time. Like it's tr every time you see a UMHS student in the hospital, they kind of wear their patch on their white coat. I'm at Huron Valley for a lot of the time, and we have a lot of the UMHS med students who rotate there in their internal medicine or surgery, and it's just nice to see, each other, and it's truly a community.
Thanks, Kirthi. Um, so I've covered clinicals, talked about CCSE, talked about step 2 CK. Um, yeah, the only other thing is that we do provide financial aid. I think Sean's going to talk about financial aid and scholarships. One thing that everybody should be very aware of, because I assume that you're all looking towards 2026. There's been some changes recently with the U.S. Department of Education and student loan programs. Um, there are there are a certain number of schools that have offer Title IV student loans. Some of those loan programs are going away in 2026. So be aware that the that's going to happen. It's the Grad Plus loan program, and that covers about 50% of the students' financial aid. So they're going to have to provide some form of alternative, probably private loan program. Just be aware that's happening in the Caribbean. We're not our lender is Sally Mae. It doesn't impact us at all. But if you're looking at other schools, just know um, that some of these schools, what's happened in the Caribbean is that over the years, those who have Title IV approval, you've seen significant increases in the cost of education, and part of the reason is that because they knew that they qualified for federal student loans, but once again, those loans are about to be diminished significantly. So be aware that I purposely have tried to keep our cost of education down because I used to run alumni organizations. I ran it for Ross for many years. I understand when you graduate what debt is like, and I know what you're making in a residency program, and I know that you have to pay it back, and I don't want you to suffer for the next, 4 to 10 years trying to figure out how to make ends meet. So I purposely try to keep it down, try to keep the cost of education down, knowing that at the end of the day you have to pay it all back. Um, so that's pretty much it for me, Sean. Is there anything that I missed, you think?
No, well, no, certainly not. But Sham, let's go to the tuition and fee slide. I think it's a since President Ross is talking about it, this is exactly what you're talking about, Warren. The only way really to beat the cost of UMHS education is to go to a public school in the U.S. as an in-state resident. The average there is $172,000 for the full 4 years of tuition. The problem, obviously, with that, and we've sort of touched on this, is that there are far more applicants to U.S. programs as there are seats in U.S. programs, public, private, in-state, out-of-state, what have you. So, the 30,000 plus people who are not getting in to med school in the US need a quality alternative. And as you've been hearing through the course of the presentation this evening, UMHS is certainly a quality alternative. And since you were making the point, President Ross, about the cost, let's put that slide back up, Sean, because you can really see what the president is talking about. Our cost is right at $200,000 in tuition and fees for the full 4 year program. Out of state options for MD programs in the US at public schools, private schools, are all in the same range in the 270s, as you can see there. But the average cost for education at the larger Caribbean medical schools balloons up to over $360,000. Those are average costs, and that's up-to-date data taken right off of websites. And incidentally, the numbers for the U.S. schools were taken right from the AAMC's most recent report on tuition and fees. So those are correct, accurate, and up to date. So this is exactly what the president is talking about when he says that he does not want to overburden you. But what you're paying at UMHS represents a tremendous value for everything, for everything you've been hearing tonight. Certainly for what you're getting through the course of the 4 years you're with us.
Yeah, Sean, I just want to point out one other thing. This is only tuition and fees. That doesn't cover the cost of attendance. You can add another $150,000 to each one of these items. That will be the full cost of attendance. So at these larger Caribbean schools, you're $500,000 in debt. That doesn't include if you had undergraduate loans also, which have been deferred. So, that gets painful when you have to pay that back on a residency's salary. So just keep that in mind as you're exploring and looking and at all, because I know you're looking at a number of schools. It's just something that should be understood.
I mean, so with that, then, I mean, obviously, not everyone has a rich uncle. So let's just quickly then talk about aid options, and then I'll circle back around. We'll talk a bit about admissions and wrap up. So, as the president mentioned, we do offer the ability to take out loans through Sallie Mae, which is one of the largest private lenders. So, and the way that the federal loans work, the interest rates are not that far off from what the private loans are these days. So, so one of the first contacts that you will have after you're accepted to UMHS is with our financial aid office, and you'll begin to work with them on your options for loans for U.S. citizens and permanent residents, and they are available for all of the different programs that we offer. For our friends in Canada, there are lines of credit available from the five major Canadian banks. There are also scholarships available, and those scholarships, they are, well, really, you're automatically reviewed for them, and they're based on GPA and other academic criteria, including MCAT. So you are reviewed for scholarship, and we notify about scholarships, of course, along with the decision on your application for admission. So if you're accepted to the university and you are offered a scholarship, you will get your acceptance letter followed up by the scholarship letter as well. So you can refer to the website for the breakdown of information on all the different scholarships that are available. So with that, with all of the information that we've provided you, my colleagues and I have provided throughout the course of the presentation this evening, probably the only major questions that you have remaining at this point are about admissions and how do you get in. And so we can talk about that now. So the process, as you can see, we have our online application, which is available online at umhs.org. And there's a couple of ways to take care of that. You can fill out the application yourself for us, or if you've applied previously in the US or Canada via either AMCAS, ACOMAS, or AMSAS, or TMD SAS. If you've applied through any of those application services, you can upload a copy of your a PDF copy of your prior application service submission, and that will serve as your UMHS application. So that makes it just a little bit simpler of a process. Once your application arrives, we'll be looking for all of the supporting credentials, your transcripts, letters of recommendation, your CV, or resume, all of the typical information that you would expect, test scores, should you have them. If you're a U.S. citizen or resident, or you did your undergrad training in the U.S., you will be required to submit an MCAT. And what our team will do once your application arrives is we do a preliminary evaluation of your background. We put together an academic evaluation of who you are and create a true cumulative GPA for breaking down really all of your undergraduate years. So if you've been to multiple institutions, don't worry about it. We will create a true cumulative GPA for you. We take a look through for the standard slate of prerequisite courses, the basic biology, basic chemistry, organic chemistry, physics, mathematics, English. These are the standard prerequisite courses that you'll find required by really any typical medical school that you're applying to, and then they, comprise the typical quote pre-med track at any institution that you may be attending. You do need a minimum of 90 undergraduate credits, and that's typically 3 years of undergraduate work. And we do that so you can apply at the end of your junior year as you're moving into your senior year. If you'll be applying at the same time to US medical schools or Canadian medical schools, you can apply to UMHS at the same time. Otherwise, you can apply directly to us. The difference between our process and the process in the US and Canada is it's not a 14-month process here. It could be a 14-day process. We are much more agile. Everything happens on a rolling basis here. Once everything comes in, we can move quickly. We can create that academic evaluation, and we can determine at that point if you are going to be invited to interview. And then that interview can happen pretty much in short order, depending on your schedule and the schedule of your interviewer, which will either be a member of the admission staff, or we also do have a couple members of the faculty and also members of our alumni association who conduct interviews as well. So depending on your schedule and the schedule of your interviewer, you most likely will be meeting via Zoom these days. That's typically how it works. You do have the option to do it face to face, and that's certainly up to you. Once the interview is complete, the interviewer submits a summary of who you are as a candidate and notes on the conversation that they had with you about your background and everything that you discussed and challenges that you faced and things that you've overcome and hopes and dreams and all of the things that, of course, are going to be covered in the interview. And that summary goes along with your entire file to the members of the faculty admissions committee. And the admissions committee is made up entirely of faculty. Even though I'm the vice president for admissions, I don't make admissions decisions. And that's really important for you to understand. I think the people who are doing the teaching in the program are deciding who is going to be joining the program. So the members of the committee meet, they vote, they make decisions, they transmit those decisions back to us in admissions, and we transmit those decisions to you as soon as we get them. And the decision can be really one of four different things. Obviously, there's admit or deny, and then there's a little bit of a nuance to the admission decision. There's the admission decision, and the admissions committee will place you in either the standard 4 semester track, or they will place you in the 5 semester extended basic science track. And that's based on your undergraduate performance, your MCAT scores, the totality of your academic background. For some students who may not, who have, a great deal of potential to be successful in medical school, but for one reason or another may not be ready, to succeed in semester one, and there's some concern on the part of the faculty about their ability to succeed in semester one, they may be offered a seat in the accelerated review program, which is, it's not an acceptance, it's an opportunity to complete a 1 semester, 15-week program, really to kind of get ready to succeed in semester one of the program. There's exposure to, content and coursework out of the basic science program. There are strategies on test taking techniques and study skills. Dr. Suganathavan is a product of the accelerated review program, and it put her into and put her and many other students like her through the years. It prepared them well, and put them on the road to success, and really got them ready in 15 weeks. If you think about what happens if you're denied from other medical schools, particularly schools in the US or Canada. If you're denied and you ask for feedback and what you can do to improve your application, typically what you will be told is to go off and do a master's program or a post-baccalaureate program or something to improve your study skills, techniques, and improve your application and come back around and apply again. And the issue there is the master's program can be 2 years, a post-bac is probably a year, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get in when you reapply to that program after completing the master's or the post-bac. And the thing about the accelerated review program is it's 1 semester, it's 15 weeks, it takes place on the UMHS campus, taught by UMHS faculty. You're surrounded by UMHS students, and in that 1 semester, we feel we can get you ready to succeed in semester one. And all you have to do is complete the program successfully, and you are guaranteed a seat in semester one the next semester. There's no reapplication. So it works well in that sense. It's something we've been doing for many, many years. And for students who may need that little bit of extra academic strengthening or strengthening of their academic foundation, the accelerated review program is a great way to do that. So, and for some students, they may not feel like they're ready to apply to medical school yet. Well, you probably should apply, and perhaps the accelerated review program would be the route for you to find your way into medical school. So those are the admissions decisions, and again, we transmit those decisions um, along with scholarship decisions if you're going to be offered a scholarship as well. So this is the breakdown of the scholarships that I referenced a little bit earlier. So now we touched on a little bit on financial aid. We did financial aid, then talked about admissions, talked about scholarships. Let's jump ahead to 81, Sean, um, and just to sort of begin to wrap up here. You've heard a lot this evening from my colleagues. There's quite a lot to cover, obviously, about our university. One of the things that often draws students to the university is the quality of our alumni. They obviously carry the banner and the flag for UMHS every single day. We're extremely proud that in our what now 18-year history, we have a 93% overall residency placement rate since the inception of the university. That's an outstanding number for any medical school. Certainly a newer medical school. We're extremely proud, and it goes back to the high academic standards set by the president, the personalized education carried out and executed by the members of the faculty. 96% student retention is a number that you're not going to see anywhere else for sure. We're proud to put that in writing, and it's true because it's in writing. You see it. What most universities will do, and as you do your research, as you look around at other options that you have, certainly among international medical schools, they will talk about residency placement, and they want you to believe that residency placement equals retention and graduation. That's just not true. So our 96% student retention and conversely 4% attrition is something it's really unheard of in our region. The low faculty to student ratio is key. You heard Dr. Walker talking about the dedicated learning specialists, all happening on our state-of-the-art campus in the Caribbean. And before you know it, you're back in the US. Only 16 or 20 months, depending on the curricular track that you're in down in St. Kitts. And before you know it, you are up with Dr. Kumar and his team in Maine, and you are getting ready to take step one and move into clinical rotations. We have our network of more than 26 affiliate teaching hospitals around North America. The affiliations with Kaplan and UWorld set you up for success as you move into the second half of your curriculum, as evidenced by high pass rates on the steps and the MCCQE, which is a Canadian exam. And so you've heard quite a bit about all of those things this evening, and it all leads to the culmination of this experience and everything that you've been working toward for so many years, and that's graduation. And we're really excited to hold graduation every single year in New York.
Are we still
Be aware,
functioning?
but it is
Sean, I
necessary.
think you stopped for a second,
Did you did you hear me? Was it me or
or it could have been me. Kirthi, could
It
you hear?
was for me as
Could,
well, Sean.
sorry about that.
we lost you for about 30 seconds. So
Well, you
I
probably So
I
I
couldn't
guess it
read
was
your lips either.
I guess it was me, and I was asking Sham to change the slide, but apparently he couldn't hear me asking him to change the slide.
Okay.
So Avery Fisher Hall, New York City, and you can see the class of 2025. What a wonderful way to come together with your family, with your friends, with your classmates, and celebrate this momentous achievement. Something that every single one of you in this audience this evening are working toward, which is one day walking across the stage, shaking the hand of the president, and being called doctor for the very first time. So it's just a wonderful way to celebrate that achievement. So this is what you're looking forward to. So once again, we are accepting applications for all three entry terms in 2026. You can head to umhs.org and file your application with us. The sooner you submit your application and all the supporting credentials, the sooner we can work with you to see if you qualify for an interview and then move everything forward through to the admissions committee. And so remember, the winter term starts in January, the spring term starts in May, and the fall term starts next September. So having said that, I'll go through our panelists one more time, thanking each of them for their participation this evening. Dr. Walker, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing some of your experience. Any last thoughts for our audience, parting words of wisdom?
I think that there's a lot of reasons to choose UMHS, but my big advice and my big tip would be I think the culture at UMHS really stands out against most of the other medical schools. Medical school can feel like a very competitive place, but at UMHS, it's very collaborative, it's very supportive. So, in addition to all of the support you get from your learning specialists, your faculty, the campus counselors, and all of that, we also have a really strong student to student support network where students feel like they're part of the family with other students and students share resources, they mentor each other, and they have more formalized structures like TA sessions and all of that. So I think that's one of the reasons if you are on the fence or unsure, that culture of support goes across the board from student to student to student to faculty, and you really are supported all the way through the finish line.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Dr. Walker. Great to see you. Have a great evening. Dr. Kumar, thanks so much for joining us this evening. And so you're certainly a veteran of the UMHS experience. You've seen things from all sides, in St. Kitts, through Maine, and in clinicals as well. So if you had one piece of advice for our audience, what would it be?
I would say if you make a decision to come to your matches, you won't regret it.
Excellent. And that will be because of the great education provided by you and the team on the faculty. So thanks so much for sharing some of your time with us this evening, Dr. Kumar.
Nice meeting you all.
All right, good to see you, Kirthi. Thanks so much. Listen, at least this time, I don't think we caught you running right off of shift, so that's good. Glad to have you, and thanks for jumping into the Q&A and answering some of those questions for us as well.
No problem. Thank you everyone for attending today. And, I hope we were able to answer some questions. The fact that you made it to the end of this presentation is amazing. I know it's a lot of information, but, we just want to make sure that you have all the information to make the best decision for you to become the best version of yourself and the best doctor that you can be. I think the culture at UMHS is so unique, and I think that really stems down from President Ross. The fact that he attends these and answers questions. I still remember attending my orientation. I had no idea what I had just gotten myself into. And then there he is, and he knows all our names. And I'm like, who is this? And then I remember Dr. Kumar still, obviously, like we're very close. And I remember him at UMHS, and I'm sad I haven't seen him in so long, but um, my first semester in ARP, I was out of school for 3 years, so it was really nice to just have the ARP experience to relearn how to learn. And he introduced me to the first time I heard half the clinical terms that I know now in our medical terminology class in ARP. And so, I'm forever grateful. And, it's definitely a culture, it's definitely a community, and culture is unmatched. So if you do join UMHS, I'm excited for you, and I hope to see you one day on clinical rotations.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Suganathan. Been great to see you. And last, certainly not least, again, this is the president's webinar for prospective students. So, again, once again, you've heard quite a bit this evening from our president, Warren Ross. Warren, any last parting thoughts for the members of our audience?
Well, I've enjoyed this tonight, and I love hearing the feedback from everybody. And I thought that people are going to walk away with a really good understanding of what UMH is all about. But what I can say is that, I've been engaged in medical education since 1978. And I will tell you that this is not an easy business. You have to have passion. You have to love. You have to be totally focused on students and want nothing but the best for them. You have to have your heart in the right place at all times. And in my view, my students always come first. Whatever their needs are, I'm dedicated to you, to your success. I'll provide you with the resources necessary to succeed academically. We're always looking for ways to improve the academic program to make this university the best. We're going through whatever accreditations, approvals, state approvals. We have various state approvals, including Georgia, Florida, California, and application to New York. So we try to get whatever recognition and whatever approvals we can, because what you going to do use that for is that when you're applying for residencies, you can show as a badge of honor that I come from not only a fully accredited school, but one that's recognized by U.S. Department of Education with these outstanding credentials to show that you really are worthy of a great residency program. And our students are proving that year after year after year. So if you're looking for kind of a small family dedicated to you, ensuring your success, always looking ways to improve, always looking ways to provide you with the best resources possible, and caring and wanting you to succeed, this is a place for you. And that's pretty much it for me, Sean.
All right. Well, thanks so much, President Ross. We appreciate all of your thoughts tonight and for leading us through the presentation. And thank you so much, those in our audience who hung around with us. And thank you so much for all of the great questions that we received. Hopefully, we were able to give you plenty of information. If you have questions beyond tonight, very easy to get in touch with us at admissions@umhs-sk.net. You can email us. You can find Sham and myself on the website. You can contact us directly. And if you're not following us on social media, you can do so on all of the major platforms that you see in front of us. You can visit us online at umhs.org for all of the information that you need. And of course, we've been recording this evening and we will have this presentation posted to our account on YouTube by the end of the day tomorrow. So you can go back and you can review any information that you'd like to hear again or pieces that you may have missed. Or you can look for me glitching toward the end of the presentation and laugh. So whatever you'd like to do, you can review the presentation. So on behalf of President Warren Ross and all of our panelists this evening, and also Sham Daria, my colleague, our Director of Enrollment Management, who's been pushing the buttons and moving the slides around and helping me answer questions. Thanks so much to all of you in our audience for joining us. Have a great evening, stay warm, and have a great holiday season. Take care.